And Houston, we see a good line.
Roger, thank you.
That call from Sturckow as he aligns the shuttle's inertial measurement units, that alignment done using star sightings, much in the same way that celestial navigation works here on Earth. That step prior to the undocking to ensure that the best navigation possible is available on board Endeavour.
Houston Endeavour, we're in the rendezvous checklist, and we're complete through 3 Alpha, and wondered if you had an update to the window open, window closed, other than what we got in the message last night.
Endeavour Houston, Bob, we copy. I'm holding message 109 Bravo in my hand, and we have no changes per what's listed there. So 2 Bravo remains as sent in 109 Bravo.
Roger that, thank you. Chris, while we got a minute, this has been a truly awesome experience. I just, words can't express how excellent this has all been. This is going to be one heck of a space station when we get it done.
You folks have done it right.
Houston Endeavour for rendezvous, enabling rendezvous nav.
Copy.
Minute to undocking now. Endeavour and the International Space Station, 245 miles above Kazakhstan.
Houston Endeavour, physical separation, executing SEP burn.
Endeavour Houston, copy.
That call that Endeavour and the station are undocked. Pilot Rick Sturckow now turning on the steering jets to begin separating. This graphic from Mission Control illustrating the relative positions between Endeavour And the space station, the range estimated about the range as recorded by onboard range rate sensors about 45 feet now. Pilot Rick Sturckow on board firing Endeavour's jets to back away from the station, backing above it, actually toward a point 450 feet above. Estimated to take almost 20 minutes to reach that point. Flight controllers for the Zarya module at Mission Control Krikalev report they've commanded the solar arrays for Zarya back to a sun tracking. Those solar arrays fixed into a feathered position for the initial undocking. This television from Endeavour now. Endeavour currently still on the night side of Earth, about 8.5 minutes from sunrise.
Endeavour Houston, just for your information, we have Simo TV looking down from Zarya, and from yourselves looking up here in the darkness.
Roger that, Chris.
This view through a centerline camera mounted in the center of Endeavour's docking mechanism, looking directly up toward
Executing Block 5 Alpha.
Roger.
Up toward Unity's docking port. The crew now taking the antenna used for television transmissions to its other mode, rendezvous radar mode, to lock on to the station and use it for radar navigation. We do expect the potential for more television, however, during Endeavour's fly around of the station as it completes a 1.5 circle fly around over the next hour and 20 minutes or so.
Houston Endeavour, radar data looks good to us. We're going to auto it if you concur.
We see the same thing. You have a go.
Range between Endeavour and the International Space Station now about 200 feet according to onboard rendezvous radar data. Endeavour separating from the station, separating above it at a rate of less than 0.3 of a mile per hour, or just about a half it per second.
Houston Endeavour taking state vector select to filter.
Roger.
Endeavour now 265 feet from the space station. Continuing to separate from the station at just over half a foot per second, or about 0.4 of a mile per hour. Again, pilot Rick Sturckow flying Endeavour out to a distance of about 450 feet from the station, at which point he'll begin a 1.5 revolution fly around to the station, nose first fly around. In this view, heading first toward a point 450 feet directly behind the station's direction of travel, then underneath the station and in front of it and back above it, and then down again behind it to a point 450 feet below it, where he'll fire Endeavour's engines for a final separation from the station. That final separation burn planned at about 3:52 p.m. Central Time. This television now from cameras on the International Space Station on the Zarya module looking down toward Endeavour. Endeavour now 360 feet distant according to onboard radar from Endeavour. Endeavour and Zarya now moving into sunrise as the space station and Endeavour cross off the coast of China, moving out above the Pacific. Endeavour backing away above the station. Range to Endeavour now 400 feet according to onboard radar from the shuttle. Separating from the station at just about a half a mile per hour. Pilot Rick Sturckow will fly out to a distance of about 450 feet before station keeping at that point and then beginning a slow fly around of the station, completing eventually 1.5 full circles of the station. Endeavour's opening rate from the station now being slowed by Sturckow as he fires jets to slow the rate at which they're separating from the station. Range now 430 feet according to onboard radar from the shuttle.
Houston, Endeavour, go for the first Covert re-net.
You have a go.
And a rendezvous officer.
You have good TCS data and handheld shows 440.
Thank you, Jim.
Rendezvous officer reports the fly around by Endeavour now beginning. Again, Endeavour circling the station 1.5 times over about the next hour. Current range about 440 feet, rather. This graphic illustrating the relative positions of the International Space Station and Endeavour. The station located at the intersection of the graph. Endeavour's jet firings also illustrated. The range between the two spacecraft about 440 feet as they fly 245 miles now above the northern Pacific Ocean.
we have good correlation on all our sensors, and we're willing to give you KU so you can see how pretty this is.
Endeavour Houston, that sounds great. We should have good KU in about 7 minutes from now.
Copy, and we're taking KU to command in comm mode.
Copy, Bob. It's looking sweet.
This is Mission Control Houston, that call from Endeavour that we do expect the opportunity to receive television for television in just a few minutes. That coming at about 2:50 p.m. Central Time, just about 6 minutes from now. Range between Endeavour and the station, about 450 feet, as pilot Rick Sturckow continues a fly around of the station. Again, he'll complete 1.5 revolutions of the station, performing video and still photography documentation by crew members out the windows of Endeavour, before firing the shuttle's engines for final separation from the station. That final separation engine firing expected at about 3:52 p.m. Central.
Endeavour Houston, we're getting centerline camera video, and it looks gorgeous.
Okay, I think you ought to go to camera B. I think you'd be happier, or Charlie rather.
Hey, you are correct.
This television of the International Space Station, flying solo above the Pacific Ocean, 245 statute miles above the northern Pacific. Endeavour and the station moving into dawn. We expect to continue to receive television for about the next half hour or so. The distance between Endeavour and the station, about 450 feet. As they fly above the northern Pacific. space station 76 feet long with a wingspan tip to tip of the solar arrays of about 78 feet and a mass of more than 35 tons. Endeavour spent a total of 6 days, 20 hours, and 38 minutes attached to both Unity and Zarya. That the time elapsed since the capture of Zarya early in the flight by mission specialist Nancy Currie using Endeavour's mechanical arm. As the crew of Endeavour began the assembly of the International Space Station in orbit during its time docked with Unity and Zarya, mission specialist Jerry Ross became the most experienced spacewalker in the history of U.S. spaceflight, amassing a total of 44 hours and 9 minutes of time spent spacewalking on 7 spacewalks during his career as an astronaut thus far, on 3 different space flights, including 21 hours and 22 minutes spent spacewalking with astronaut Jim Newman on this mission. Newman has become the second most experienced spacewalker in U.S. spaceflight history, with a total of 28 hours and 27 minutes of spacewalking time, that including an earlier spacewalk on shuttle mission STS-88. The crew also captured the most massive object ever maneuvered using the shuttle's mechanical arm, the 42,000-pound Zarya module, as Nancy Currie captured that to attach it to Unity. Correction on astronaut Jim Newman becomes the third most experienced spacewalker in U.S. spaceflight history. The second still Tom Akers, who's amassed a total of 29 hours and 41 minutes on 5 spacewalks. Newman following closely behind Akers now with 28 hours and 27 minutes of cumulative spacewalking time.
Houston, handheld laser 461.
Copy.
Houston, Endeavour, do we have a go for inner hatch access?
Endeavour Houston, assuming you can tear yourself away from the window, yes, it is past the leaks, and you have a go for ingress ops through the inner hatch.
And I assume that's not time critical. There's no rush to do that.
We concur.
Thanks.
That just a call to the crew that the orbiter docking system now detached from the station. The inner hatch of the airlock is closed as a standard procedure prior to the undocking. That's all in fine shape. They can reopen that hatch at their leisure. This view as Endeavour remains about 440 feet from the International Space Station, continuing now above the just crossing the equator above the Pacific. Later this evening at about just before 9 p.m. Central Time, the station will have been reoriented to a position where Unity will be facing pointing down toward Earth, and Zarya out toward deep space. It will be put into a slow spin rate of about 0.2 of a degree per second. That's equivalent to 1 full revolution every half hour or so. That's an orientation that will allow it to be very naturally stable. The steering jets for the station will be turned off. That will conserve propellant. That will be the standard operating mode for the station for the majority of time between now and the next shuttle to visit the station. That shuttle mission STS-86 planned for launch in May of 1999. That orientation and slow spin also allows optimum heating and cooling of the station during night and day in orbit. About once a week, the steering jet system on the station will be turned back on, and its guidance system updated and other systems checks and activities performed as needed. Then it will be put back into the same spin and orientation. Again, that being the majority of the time between now and its arrival of shuttle mission STS-96 in May. Flight controllers here at Mission Control Houston in the International Space Station Flight Control Room will remain on duty around the clock, as will flight controllers in the Zarya Flight Control Room at Mission Control Krikalev, as well as those in the Houston Support Group at Mission Control Krikalev, a small group of NASA flight controllers stationed there. This graphic illustrating the relative positions between Endeavour and the station as Sturckow continues the fly around, nearing 1/2 revolution now as he approaches a point directly beneath the station.
Houston, Endeavour, we think we're on reflector number 4. Do you concur?
Jim, we concur.
Good. In that case, we've got good agreement with handheld at 498 to the center and TCS a little over 500.
Thank you.
This view now looking at the port on the Zarya, to which will dock the 3rd station module, the service module and early living quarters, Russia's primary contribution to the station, scheduled to be launched in the summer of 1999.
Now that the sun's cooperating.
Seems like everything's cooperating. We have a great view. Thank you.
Also this, the far end of the station where Ross and Newman ventured yesterday to install a handrail and also reposition a materials exposure tray that had apparently come loose during launch. Within the next year, 4 more space shuttle missions are scheduled to visit the International Space Station. The 3rd module that will be launched, the next module will be the service module, an early living quarters to be launched from Russia on a Russian Proton booster in the summer of next year. Before that module arrives, the 2nd space shuttle mission that will visit the station will be shuttle mission STS-86, planned for launch in May of 1999. Just after the arrival of the service module, which we launched unpiloted and remotely dock with the station, actually Zarya and Unity flying to the service module to dock using Zarya's automated rendezvous system. Then another shuttle mission STS-101, will visit the station to bring supplies and logistics and assist in the orbital setup of the service module. That following that flight in October 1999, shuttle mission STS-92 will launch carrying an early exterior framework with gyroscopes and communications equipment that will be activated later on the station, as well as a 3rd mating adapter, a conical mating adapter, as they're attached to either end of Unity. Then about a year from now, the first U.S. solar panels will be launched to the station. Those the first of 4 sets of solar panels that will stretch to supply power to the station's eventually 6 laboratories. Those panels plan to be launched on shuttle mission STS-87 in December of 1999. And in January 2000, just over a year from now, the first crew is planned to be launched to the space station, including mission specialist Sergei Krikalev as the flight engineer, the crew commanded by U.S. astronaut Bill Shepard, with Soyuz commander cosmonaut Yuri Gudzenko. During the 36 space shuttle missions, 35 remaining, and 8 more Russian rocket launches planned to assemble the station. The berthing ports seen here on Unity, the 5 remaining berthing ports, the 4 radial ports, and the port to which the mating adapter is now attached will have more than a dozen different modules and components attached to them at various times. As modules are moved about for the assembly activities. Eventually, Unity, however, will have attached to it the United States laboratory, located where the mating adapter to which Endeavour was docked now. Another connecting module, similar to Unity but slightly larger. A U.S. airlock module, the first exterior framework called a Z1 truss structure that holds gyroscopes and KU-band communications antenna for the station, and a multi-windowed cupola that will serve as a area for astronauts to use as a viewing port for operations exterior to the station with robotics or during spacewalks. Distance between Endeavour and the International Space Station about 470 feet as pilot Rick Sturckow continues his circle of the station. Again, planning to do a full 1.5 circles of the station before firing Endeavour's engines to separate from the vicinity for a final time. Currently about 3/4 of the way around on the first circle, now at a point ahead of the station in its direction of travel, and moving back toward a point directly above the station.
Endeavour Houston, if we could get just a little zoom out on camera Charlie, get some horizon in the view, it sure would be nice.
You got it, Chris. And in order to get the station in there, we lose a little bit of the earth.
Understand.
Endeavour and the International Space Station continuing across the extreme southern Pacific. Their course about to cross the extreme southernmost tip of South America. Endeavour and the station now approaching the coast of the southern tip of South America. So pilot Rick Sturckow aboard Endeavour continues his fly around of the International Space Station.
Endeavour for rendezvous.
Go ahead.
Chris, you still want us to perform that radar acquisition 5 minutes prior to the minus R bar, or do you want to wait a little bit past that?
Endeavour Houston, Bob, we will be swapping from Tidris west to east in 3 minutes, and we'll be in blockage on Tidris then. If you could please go to radar at that point, 3 minutes and 8 seconds from now.
Okay, call us when you swap and we'll set up for radar.
Thank you, sir.
Sturckow is now nearing a point, heading back toward a point directly above the station, coming into view the docking port for the next shuttle flight for STS-86 in May, the docking port from which Endeavour has just left. At the top of the screen, the Zarya module for the station, the early propulsion and electrical power and system for automated rendezvous with the third station module, the service module, to be launched next summer. And at the bottom of the screen, the Unity module, basically the hub for all of the future U.S. station modules planned to launch to the station.
And Houston Endeavour, we're on TCS reflector number 3. How about you?
We copy, Jim. Sounds good.
Endeavour now crossing above the southern tip of South America, around Punta Arenas in Chile, and crossing above Argentina, the southern tip of Argentina as well. Its course will take it almost directly above the Falkland Islands as it moves out above the Atlantic Ocean.
Handing over to Tidris East.
Roger.
Endeavour Houston, back with you on Tidris East.
Endeavour, roger.
As Endeavour moves to completing one full revolution of the station, we don't expect an opportunity for television again for at least another 40 minutes or so. The crew will be taking the antenna used for television back to radar mode, putting it into rendezvous radar mode for the shuttle as they continue the fly around. Again, another half revolution. Pilot Rick Sturckow flying Endeavour to a point directly below the station before firing Endeavour's engines to separate the vicinity of the station.
Houston, Endeavour, we get to auto the data.
Endeavour Houston, affirmative.
Houston, Endeavour, just for info, as we cross the minus R bar here, it's perfectly aligned from where we left it, except that it has a slight roll. It's about 90 degrees out from undock position.
Copy, thank you.
Good, huh? How it's supposed to work.
Onboard radar from Endeavour now showing about 480 feet between Endeavour and the International Space Station. So pilot Rick Sturckow continues circling the station. Having already completed one full revolution, about a half a circle left to go. When he reaches a point directly beneath the station, he'll fire Endeavour's jets to begin final separation. Space Station's steering jet system currently off. It'll be powered back on later in the afternoon. As the crew reported, the station very stable, however, only rotating very slowly, slightly moved in a rotation. Later today, just before 9 p.m. Central Time, the station will be reoriented to have the Unity module facing down toward Earth and the Zarya module facing up toward deep space. A slow spin will be initiated, spin at a rate of about 0.2 of a degree per second, equivalent to about one full revolution for the station every half hour, every 30 minutes. That an orientation that provides natural stability for the station. After that, the steering jet system will be turned off to conserve propellant, and the station left in that spinning orientation. Also an orientation that provides optimal heating and cooling for the station's systems. That'll be the standard mode of operations for the station for much of the next 5 months between now and the arrival of the next shuttle flight, STS-86, scheduled for launch in May 1999. Although about once a week the station's steering jet system will be powered back on and its orientation changed to allow an update of guidance for the station and other system checkouts and activities as needed, then it will be put back into the same spin orientation for natural stability to conserve propellant and left that way till the next week. Flight controllers for the International Space Station, both here in Mission Control Houston and at Mission Control Krikalev, the Zarya Flight Control Room, will remain on duty around the clock, monitoring the station systems from now throughout the station's operational lifetime. This is Mission Control Houston as pilot Rick Sturckow continues his fly around of the space station. He only has about a quarter revolution left to go before completing the full 1.5 circles planned. It's anticipated he'll reach that point and perform the final separation engine firing in about 11 minutes or so at about 3:48 p.m. Central Time. Onboard radar from Endeavour shows the range between the shuttle and the International Space Station, 445 feet now. As Sturckow basically maintains that distance while completing the final quarter revolution of this 1.5 circle fly around. This is Mission Control Houston again. Pilot Rick Sturckow completing the final quarter revolution of a 1.5 circle fly around of the International Space Station. All of that activity going very smoothly. We anticipate that Sturckow will reach the point to fire Endeavour's engines for a final separation from the station in about a little over 8 minutes or so from now. A point 450 feet directly below the station. Overseeing activities for Endeavour's rendezvous, the docking and undocking and fly around with the International Space Station is Joe Williams, the lead rendezvous officer for this mission in the shuttle mission control room in Mission Control Houston. Endeavour and the International Space Station now just about to cross the Atlantic coast of Central Africa. Their course will take them across northern Africa and then the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Endeavour now just about 4 minutes away from an engine firing that pilot Rick Sturckow will perform to separate the shuttle from the vicinity of the International Space Station for a final time, leaving the station flying solo until May of 1999 and the launch of shuttle mission STS-86. This separation engine firing will be about a 20-second long firing of Endeavour steering jets, the resultant change in velocity for the shuttle of only about 5 feet per second. Again, putting Endeavour on a slow course, separating the vicinity of the International Space Station. Endeavour now approaching the point directly beneath the International Space Station, range to the station about 465 feet according to onboard radar from Endeavour. and about a minute and a half from the point where Sturckow will fire Endeavour's engines to begin a final separation from the station. Having completed full 1.5 revolutions around the station. The two spacecraft currently above northern Africa. In this engine firing about a 20-second long firing of Endeavour steering jets. Change in velocity for the shuttle of about 5 feet per second. Or about little more than 3 miles an hour.
Me too.
Endeavour's engines now firing. Again, putting Endeavour on a course of final separation from the International Space Station. Leaving the station to fly solo, awaiting the arrival of the next shuttle to visit, shuttle mission STS-86 in May of 1999. That a mission aboard the shuttle Discovery.
Houston Endeavour, good set burn.
We concur.
Endeavour's now moving away from the station at a rate of about 1.5 miles per hour. Already 570 feet away from the station. As it continues to fall back behind the station. Endeavour now 850 feet from the station, separating at about 2.5 miles per hour.
have a go for Block 13 Alpha.
Endeavour Houston, we'd like you to stand by for about 3 minutes to get a little more radar tracking. We'll give you a call.
Copy.
Endeavour Houston, 2 minutes out. We like your config for the burn.
Thanks, Houston.
Endeavour now about a minute away from this engine firing, a 10-second long firing of one of Endeavour's orbital maneuvering system engines. The right orbital maneuvering system engine on the right-hand side of Endeavour's tail. This engine firing will have a negligent effect on Endeavour's current orbital altitude. It's an out-of-plane engine firing, moving its ground track very, very slightly, almost imperceptible. However, it's being done for a simplex experiment, Department of Defense study of using radar tracking of shuttle engine firings, this being done over a radar site in Peru. Propulsion officer reports the engines firing now. And good engine firing.
Good burn, Endeavour.
Roger. And Houston, Endeavour, do you want us in primaries or burns?
I'd like you to stay in A, inertial burn, and this will work great through the PAO event on until we get to the SAC A attitude a little later.
Copy, we're at A, inertial burn, thanks.
Well, you all look relaxed and happy, and should I add to that, relieved?
I think we're very pleased to have accomplished everything that we set out to do on this flight, and yes, I'd say definitely relieved now that all the hard work's over.
Bob, since this is one of the last of these interview sessions for this flight, let's sum up a little bit. I'd like your impressions of the magnitude of what you've just done. It seems to me that there had to be a few moments when it must have overwhelmed you. What were they?
Well, I think the thing that overwhelmed all of us, or maybe not overwhelmed us, but really impressed us, was when we undocked today, and we looked back on what we'd accomplished in the last 10 days, and it was amazing. I mean, here we are, we got airborne, we had Unity in the bay, and when we left a functioning space station ready for the next module to come up. And it was just hard to believe that we accomplished all that in the time allowed.
Anybody else have some thoughts on that? Because this is the first time, and there can only be one first time for anything.
Well, I think it was really a great start to the station. It showed the team cooperation between the U.S. and Russia, and as we start to add the other international members, pieces of hardware, we'll be incorporating them into the company also, and it's a great start.
Well, that brings up, the space enterprise has always been heavily mixed with politics from the start, but with 16 nations involved as owners and operators of this station, does it seem to you that a new kind of space program has been created?
Well, I think we're definitely on the verge of something new, all of us working together, and that's the way it ought to be. And I think you're going to see that there are going to be a lot of gains that are made because of this, and it's going to carry off into other areas, and eventually it's going to get us out of low Earth orbit.
Bob, you and your crew just finished one flight out of dozens with better than 150 spacewalks ahead at a minimum, and none of them will get any easier. Is it really manageable in your estimation?
Well, I think it's definitely manageable. I think that we showed that it can be done. It just requires a lot of teamwork and coordination and training. And I'll let you talk to, let's talk to the spacewalkers that actually got out there and did it, and you can get their impression.
Yes, I want to do that. Jim?
Okay, just a quick thought from here, and I think that if we plan these missions properly, and I was fortunate enough to go out with Jerry Ross, and he did a whole lot of work planning these set of EVAs, and careful planning and attention to detail, and I think we've got a good shot at it.
Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I think we have developed a very strong team of people back in Houston, and there's certainly a strong team in Russia as well that understand the systems, that develop the systems, and that get us trained and get ready to go. And we learned some things on this flight that we'll take back to pass on to the future crews, but I think we're in good shape for what we have to tackle.
What were the biggest surprises during the spacewalk? I mean, you're the grand champion spacewalker now, Jerry. This is your 7th one you just completed. There must have been some things on this one that you hadn't seen before.
Well, yeah, I learned I need to tether more often than I did before. I haven't lost anything before, and I thought I was following proper tether protocols this time and lost things. And that's something I'm going to take back. I think some of our hardware may not be totally designed to the extent that it needs to be to prohibit us from losing hardware in space. I think also that the flying of the SAFER that we did yesterday demonstrates that we may have some additional engineering work to do there.
You were consistently ahead of the timeline, though, on all 3 spacewalks. How did you manage that, and does that signal anything for ease of work around the space station?
Again, I think it just goes to show that we were well trained for what we intended to do, and that we had designed our spacewalks to leave us some margin so that if we had some unexpected events or some problems out there, we could recover from them and still be successful.
I'd like to add to that also. I think that we showed that it was partially because of the training that these guys did. They trained so well, and they knew it cold. In Nancy's arm operations, everything that was done there, all the coordination and everything, it went so smoothly because of all the work that went into it ahead of time. Also, because it went smoothly on the plant test, we were able to handle the unexpected. And I think any EVA that we do on Space Station, there are going to be those unexpected things that come up, antennas that don't deploy, and so on. So we always want to leave a little bit of margin, and we structured our EVAs on this flight so that we had some margin.
Let me talk to Nancy for just a moment. Operating the arm with that much mass on it, I know you did it on the ground, in the water, and with the balloons, but did it seem any different to you when you were moving it out of the cargo bay?
Well, there wasn't a tremendous amount of clearance coming out of the cargo bay. We had a little bit over an inch on each side, so we just moved as slow as we possibly could and brought it straight up. We're very thankful that the Canadian robotic arm worked just great, and in fact, I would say the arm flew better than some of our simulators did. So if there were any surprises, was that the arm actually flew more stable than it did in some of our simulators, which only helped.
Jerry, there was one moment I noticed you watching it very carefully during the last EVA toward the end when you were alone on the stack drinking in the view over Australia. What was going through your mind then? You must have been seeing poetry in front of your eyes.
It's very seldom when you're on a spacewalk where you have the opportunity to get a break and to absorb what you're experiencing and what you can see visually. It was an awesome sight to just be able to, with one hand, very easily maneuver my body all around to look back into the orbiter windows and see my friends inside, to look up and see Jim as he was doing the work, to look down at Australia as we were coasting by at over 200 miles high, and to look up onto the stack, knowing that we had accomplished all the tasks and we're getting ready today to release it and to come back home.
Rick Sturckow, did you ever fly a more careful profile than you did today when you backed off from that space station?
Well, I can tell you, I was just trying to do the best I could. I thought I was very well trained and prepared for the task, and I just gave it my best shot. My commander was right there by my side, making sure that we did it exactly as we were supposed to.
What were you thinking, though? Were you sweating just a little bit?
Well, I think, like I said, the training prepared you very well, and, you know, it's just an awesome sight backing away from the space station. I hope to come back to ISS in the future, and it'll just be amazing to see it grow as we progress through the program.
Yeah, isn't it something to remember that this piece you put out today looks so big in the cargo bay, but it'll almost be lost inside the full station?
It is. It's really going to be an amazing thing. We were commenting already, there is a lot of volume inside of that space station, and when it gets done, it's going to have more than inside of a 747. It's going to be a great research facility, and we're going to learn a lot about human spaceflight.
Sergei, Krikalev, you got to visit the Russian module and look at see it in operation for the first time. Were you happy with what you found overall?
Yes, this first visit of this new station was very impressive. This new volume, especially after several days of flight in a relatively small environment of shuttle, when you go into the station, it amazed how you could fly through the station.
Bob, we all know the situation with the Russian economy. What if they can't carry out all of their obligations, no matter how sincere their desire? What happens to the station if that happens?
Well, I think that's more a question for the program than it is the crew. I know folks are working very hard to ensure that no matter what happens, we're going to continue building this space station. And I know it's going to be an international cooperative effort because it's the right thing to do. So I don't think that we have to worry. I think it's going to happen.
And you're all tucked in and ready for the trip home tomorrow. Just wrap up a few things, get it put away, and the orbiter seems to have been just wonderful during this ride.
Endeavor's a super spaceship, and it's worked extremely well. We got a couple of satellites still to deploy. Jim and Jerry and Sergei still got some packing to do, but we've cleared out the middeck, as you can see. Got a lot of stuff stowed away, but still a lot of work ahead. You were talking earlier about how easy everything looked, and I just got to compliment this crew. These guys have worked extremely hard over the past couple of years preparing for this mission. And we were talking a couple of days ago when we were getting ready for more of the EVA work, and I said, I want you to keep continuing to do what you do, and that's make the challenging look easy and the mildly difficult, or the impossible look mildly difficult. It may have looked easy, but believe me, Nancy spent hours working on that arm, and Jerry and Jim and CJ spent hours preparing for those 3 EVAs.
Well, my time's up. You have a safe ride home. In Houston, that concludes the ABC portion of this event.
Endeavour, that concludes the ABC portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from Tony Whitten of AP.
Endeavour, this is AP.
Endeavour, Roger.
Hear me?
Loud and clear, Tony.
Thanks very much, and congratulations to all of you on your space station mission. The first question is for Commander Cabana. Well, what did it look like when you pulled away? Was it describe it for our radio listeners? What was the sight as the shuttle moved away?
Well, it was still in the dark, so we didn't have a real good view on it. I think the most striking view was when the sun rose and the sun hit it, and it just was truly magnificent. And I think all of us looked out at it and couldn't believe what had transpired in the last few days, bringing Zarya and Unity together and going inside and activating the systems and just seeing it all come together, all those years of hard work and the teamwork that was involved. It was truly amazing.
The next question is for Jerry Ross. What kind of feeling of accomplishment do you have after all that hard work?
A tremendous feeling of accomplishment. I started working on the space station back in about 1984, and have worked in various different capacities, helping to plan how we were going to conduct the EVAs and build the station since that time. So to be able to participate in the first assembly flight and to go out with a good buddy like Jim and to have 3 successful EVAs and leave a fully functional space station up here is a great feeling.
Can I ask whether you folks did anything to celebrate? Did you have anything to drink? Did you play any music?
No, we just enjoyed the success of what we'd have accomplished. I think that in itself was more than enough celebration. We were just all extremely pleased to have it gone so well, and thank everybody on the ground for all their hard work making it happen.
Can you tell us whether there were any mementos, maybe perhaps left inside this new space station that you've left, these first 2 modules?
Well, there might have been a couple of surprises left for future crews when they come up to live on it, and if we told you what they were, they wouldn't be surprises, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, we'll hope they're pleasant surprises in any respect. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the actual serious stuff, lessons? You're going to be debriefed extensively when you get back about every minute detail of what happened. Any pointers you might pass along for as they plan these future increments in delivering additional hardware?
I think one of the key areas is preparedness and training, but I'm going to pass it to our lead arm operator, and I'm sure she's got a few comments.
I think one of the biggest things is the integration between the RMS operators and the EVA crew members, and now that we have a tremendous facility like the Neutral Buoyancy Lab where we can really practice that interaction, I think all those long hours of training really paid off. So being prepared for all the station systems and computer systems, I really think we felt quite familiar with the systems and the procedures because of all the hours of training that we spent.
Well, that actually brings me to my next question, and that involves the level of training for some of these future missions when the activity starts to ramp up and you hit what I believe has been described as the wall. Given your experience on this mission, how do you think when you get to that crunch time, how critical is ground training going to be, and quite frankly, is there enough scheduled?
I think the training's there. I think you got to look at the experience of crews that go up, and a lot of the training that we get is skills development, and when you have the skills, you can accomplish the unexpected, and I think these guys showed that. Jerry and Jim had a number of unexpected events or unplanned events during the EVA, and they were able to accomplish those tasks. Nancy was able to fly to a bunch of areas on the station that we hadn't practiced on the ground. So I think the level of skill that people have make up and give you that margin.
Endeavour, that concludes Tony's portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from Marcia Dunn.
Endeavour, this is AP. How do you hear me?
Loud and clear, Marcia.
Commander, you said you wish you could have stayed a little longer at the station. I'm wondering, was there any sense of sadness as you pulled away this afternoon? After all, most of you won't be back anytime soon.
Jerry said, don't rub that in, Marcia. I don't think there was sadness today. I think today was one of a sense of accomplishment, seeing what we had left behind. but I do have to admit that when we closed the hatches, the entire crew was a little bit down. We were so elated after having entered the space station that when it came time to leave, it was a little bit of a downer. We would have loved to have stayed longer.
For Rick, as you were entering Zarya or Unity, did it have that fresh car smell when you first floated inside, or was it actually sort of stuffy and musty?
Well, you know, they'd hooked up all the air duct hoses as a part of the ingress procedures, and it really is like a new car in there. Both Unity and Zarya are very well built and look like they're going to last a long time.
For any of you, how were the acoustics? And I'd like to hear some more impressions of the inside of the station.
I think we were all impressed with the station. The construction of both modules. Zarya, with what it provides in power and attitude control, and Unity as the connecting piece. Very, very fine workmanship, extremely nice. A wonderful place to live. I know Sergei is, I should let Sergei comment because he's the one that's going to have to live there.
Building this new station, we try to include all our experience in both programs for successful construction of this station. So I think these new flights, new missions will be successful also because big basement of experience based on these future missions.
Sergei, I have another question for you. Zarya and Unity look so clean and empty compared to the Mir. How hard will it be for you to keep it that way so the world doesn't end up with another cluttered space station?
This is one of the comments which I'm going to make on debrief because Mir station also was on first couple missions also clean and empty. But when you return back from Mir station and go into simulator, you're amazed how empty it is. We have to keep order on this station from very beginning. We have to put additional effort probably, especially with all these new upcoming missions, to be sure that everything on station will be in proper order.
For Jim, I'm wondering how exhausting was it to go out on 3 spacewalks in under a week, and I'm wondering if your body is still feeling the effects of all the hard work.
It was definitely tiring. Those were 7-hour EVAs and 3 of them, and so I'd say that it was like a really good workout, but we had a day between the first 2 and 2 days between the last 2. So I think that Jerry and I are both ready to go again if we need to. But of course, we think that 3 EVAs for this flight will be enough.
Jerry, how was it is exhausting for you? How do your muscles feel sore still?
No, actually, I think I feel better after this flight than any other time that I've conducted EVAs. The gloves I wore this time, even though I do have a couple of reminders from them, really felt good. They were much more flexible and dexterous and less fatiguing to use. I think they're a good advance forward. And also the suit fit I had this time was outstanding. I had absolutely no hot spots in the suit, and it just fit like a glove and worked great.
For Nancy, now that all the hard part is over, are you glad to have a day to more or less take it easy, or would you just as soon be coming back to Earth tomorrow?
Oh, no, as a matter of fact, because we have been so extremely busy, we haven't had any time at all to look out the window. And so if we do have any time today before we go to bed or between our activities today, everybody's trying to get a look out the window because that is one thing we have missed.
Well, Endeavour, a safe landing on Tuesday. That concludes the event.
Thank you, Marcia.
Thanks, ABC and AP. This resumes operational air-to-grounds, and good event, Endeavour. We're a minute away from the ZOE, back with you at 1826. You have a go to work GPS PBA operations step 1 during the ZOE.
Okay, Mike, thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston with the completion of those interviews by ABC Radio and the Associated Press and the AP Radio Network. The astronauts now turn their attention to some housekeeping chores on board Endeavour. They will be maintaining the 14.7 pounds per square inch cabin pressure that they repressurized Endeavour's cabin to following the undocking of Endeavour from the International Space Station earlier today. Jim Newman will join Jerry Ross and Sergei Krikalev to stow all of the tools that Ross and Newman used during the course of their 3 spacewalks over the past week in this mission. Rick Sturckow will set out to clean some filters, which is a part of the routine housekeeping activity that is always a part of this mission. And they will set up for the deployment in a little more than an hour and a half of a small 590-pound satellite from a canister in the cargo bay of Endeavour for the government of Argentina, called the Satellite de Aplicaciones Científico A satellite. That is the SAC-A satellite. That satellite contains a number of new technologies being tested for the government of Argentina, including a small camera trained back at the Earth, a global positioning system device, some solar cells to test out how well Argentine technology works in that regard, a magnetometer, and an experiment to track the movement of whales in the Pacific Ocean by targeting the ocean currents as they are perturbated by the movement of large whales off the coast of Argentina. That deployment is scheduled to take place at 10:31 p.m. Central Time this evening, one of 2 small satellites that will be deployed by Endeavour's astronauts over the next couple of days. Tomorrow night, a 700-pound satellite called MightySat will be deployed. That is the first flight of an Air Force Phillips Laboratory Space Experiments Directorate technology experiment designed again to test some advanced technologies. The MightySat satellite will be deployed on Monday night, one of the final activities for the crew before they button up the ship and stow the crew cabin prior to Tuesday night's scheduled landing. Module facing the Earth and the Zarya module facing deep space at 7:19 p.m. Central Time earlier this evening, about 3.5 hours ago. That on commanding through the motion control system of the Zarya control module from commands sent by the Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. An hour and a half later at 8:49 p.m. Central Time, a slow spin was initiated for the station of about 1 revolution every 30 minutes that will maintain the proper thermal conditioning on the station over the course of its 5 months of unpiloted operations. Over the next few months, the motion control system on the Zarya module will be reactivated about once a week by the flight control teams to maintain a constant monitoring of its performance, and updates will be maintained to the Zarya guidance system, as well as other systems checks to be performed on station systems by the International Flight Control Team, both here in Houston and in Korolyov outside of Moscow. So with all of the shuttle and station systems in good shape and the astronauts now beginning to turn their attention in earnest to Tuesday's scheduled landing at the Kennedy Space Center, we passed 9 days, 20 hours, 25 minutes into Endeavour's flight. This is Mission Control Houston.
Houston, Endeavour for OCA.
Go ahead for OCA.
Yeah, if they want at their leisure, they can also downlink the RPOP directory that I put under OCA down. It is all the RPOP data from the flight for the RPOP people if they'd like to get it early.
Okay, Jim, thanks for that. We're going to get the mail, and if we have additional time, we'll go ahead and get that data.
And Houston, Endeavour for GPS, is it okay? Does it have to start right at 2030, or can we slip that a little bit?
Bob, we've looked at it. There's a couple minutes slack. We need to be fairly close for comm coverage.
Understand. Endeavour for pilot.
Go ahead for pilot.
Yeah, Mike. I was just trying to verify that our software load for pilot, in fact, was checked out. We've run it on both STS-4 and STS-5, and in both cases, it goes through all the initial tests. It allows you to enter data. It talks to the RHC, and when you go to hit enter and run, it just locks up and shows a frozen display. In one case, it had the runway with none of the other symbology, and in another case, it had the HUD symbology frozen with none of the ground displays showing.
We copy, Bob, and we'll check right into that for you.
And we'll try and troubleshoot it later, but we don't have time right now. We're going to get into that GPS Ops 3 test.
Roger that.
Miles, opening up that distance by 14 miles every revolution of the Earth. Crew members are set to be awakened this morning at 11:36 to begin Flight Day 12. This is Mission Control Houston.
Sunday morning's wake-up call to astronaut Bob Cabana and his crewmates on board the Space Shuttle Endeavour was the first such call ever sent from the new International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston. And spacecraft communicator Mike Fink's message was that the crew's work with the new station was about to come to an end.
Endeavour, good morning from the station team here in Houston, Moscow, and all over the world.
Good morning, Beamer. Well, I'm afraid it is time to go.
On board Endeavour, Cabana powered up the shuttle's backup systems as pilot Rick Sturckow took his place at the shuttle's controls on the aft flight deck. The other astronauts were also in position when spacecraft communicator Chris Hadfield gave them the go to proceed.
Endeavour Houston, we have confirmed with the International Space Station folks and the Space Shuttle folks, you have a go for undocking.
Roger, a go for undocking from the International Space Station.
With all ready to go, Sturckow released the orbiter docking system's hold on pressurized mating adapter number 1, undocking Endeavour from the new space station. The two spacecraft slowly separated from one another a short distance before Sturckow took control, carefully flying Endeavour to a distance of 450 feet above the International Space Station. From there, he started to slowly fly the shuttle around the station so his crewmates could conduct a detailed photographic survey. For a little more than an hour, Endeavour soared around the space station to gather the first ever images of the International Space Station in free flight, first against the backdrop of the Earth, looking up at the aft end of Zarya to the port where the service module is to dock next year, back down again on the Zarya and Unity modules. After completing 1.5 revolutions of the station, Sturckow fired Endeavour's jets in a final separation maneuver, leaving the International Space Station on its own. Monitored by flight controllers on 2 continents, the vehicle will fly solo until the next shuttle assembly and supply mission, scheduled for this coming May. With the primary tasks of the mission completed, Endeavour's astronauts were given a few hours off-duty time Sunday evening before gathering on the middeck to discuss the progress of their flight in a series of interviews. Cabana said all of the astronauts were impressed by the sight of the new space station flying on its own.
I think the thing that overwhelmed all of us, or maybe not overwhelmed us, but really impressed us, was when we undocked today and we looked back on what we'd accomplished in the last 10 days, and it was amazing. I mean, here we are, we got airborne, we had Unity in the bay, and when we left a functioning space station ready for the next module to come up. And it was just hard to believe that we accomplished all that in the time allowed.
Mission specialist Jerry Ross, whose 3 spacewalks on this mission give him more spacewalking time than any other American, agreed with his crewmates that most of the thanks for the success of this mission is owed to people on the ground.
I think we have developed a very strong team of people back in Houston, and there certainly is a strong team in Russia as well that understand the systems, that develop the systems, and that get us trained and get ready to go. And we learned some things on this flight that we'll take back to pass on to the future crews, but I think we're in good shape for what we have to tackle.
And cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev, a veteran of more than a year in space during 2 missions to Russia's Mir space station, was asked if he had any suggestions for keeping the new space station from becoming as cluttered as the Mir has over its almost 13 years on orbit.
This is one of the comments which I'm going to make on debrief, because Mir station also was on first couple missions also clean and empty. But when you return back from Mir station and go into simulator, you're amazed how empty it is. We have to keep order on this station from very beginning. We have to put additional effort probably, especially with all these new upcoming missions, to be sure that everything on station will be in proper order.
Late Sunday, Endeavour's crew accomplished another mission objective, deploying a small, non-recoverable technology demonstration satellite for the country of Argentina out of a canister in the shuttle's payload bay. A similar deployment of a U.S. Air Force satellite is scheduled for Monday night, just before Endeavour's astronauts begin packing up the orbiter for Tuesday night's planned landing at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go home. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go home. I hate to leave you. I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night.
Endeavour, good morning from the station team here in Houston, Moscow, and all over the world.
Good morning, Beamer. Well, I'm afraid it is time to go. It's been a great stay up here, but we'll be ready. Wish we could stay longer, but we'll get safely away and keep it for somebody else to come back and add more to it.
Well, as you undock today and say goodnight to Zarya and Unity, we'd like you to thank you and congratulate you for putting the first pieces of the International Space Station together. And like to say outstanding work, and we'd like to build on your success for all the space station missions to come.
Well, the station team's done a heck of a job, Mike, and I know you'll pass it on to everybody, not just in Houston, but over in MCC Moscow and the Houston support group. We've come a long way, and you guys did a superlative job, and the station, it's running great. We're really looking forward to seeing you build on this success. Houston Endeavour, physical separation, executing SEP burn.
Endeavour Houston, copy. Endeavour Houston, just for your information, we have Simo TV looking down from Zarya and from yourselves looking up here in the darkness.
61.
Copy.
Should have a picture again in Charlie, Houston, now that the sun's cooperating.
Seems like everything's cooperating. We have a great view. Thank you.
I'd like your impressions of the magnitude of what you've just done. It seems to me that there had to be a few moments when it must have overwhelmed you. What were they?
Well, I think the thing that overwhelmed all of us, or maybe not overwhelmed us, but really impressed us, was when we undocked today, and we looked back on what we'd accomplished in the last 10 days, and it was amazing. I mean, here we are. We got airborne. We had Unity in the bay, and when we left a functioning space station ready for the next module to come up. And it was just hard to believe that we accomplished all that in the time allowed.
Anybody else have some thoughts on that? Because this is the first time, and there can only be one first time for anything.
Well, I think it was really a great start to the station. It showed the team cooperation between the U.S. and Russia, and as we start to add the other international members, pieces of hardware, we'll be incorporating them into the company also, and it's a great start.
Well, that brings up, the space enterprise has always been heavily mixed with politics from the start, but with 16 nations involved as owners and operators of this station, does it seem to you that a new kind of space program has been created?
Well, I think we're definitely on the verge of something new, all of us working together, and that's the way it ought to be. And I think you're going to see that there are going to be a lot of gains that are made because of this, and it's going to carry off into other areas, and eventually it's going to get us out of low Earth orbit.
Bob, you and your crew just finished one flight out of dozens with better than 150 spacewalks ahead at a minimum, and none of them will get any easier. Is it really manageable in your estimation?
Well, I think it's definitely manageable. I think that we showed that it can be done. It just requires a lot of teamwork and coordination and training. And I'll let you talk to, let's talk to the spacewalkers that actually got out there and did it, and you can get their impression.
Yes, I want to do that. Jim?
Okay, just a quick thought from here, and I think that if we plan these missions properly, and I was fortunate enough to go out with Jerry Ross, and he did a whole lot of work planning these set of EVAs, and careful planning and attention to detail, and I think we've got a good shot at it.
Yes, Jerry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I think we have developed a very strong team of people back in Houston, and there's certainly a strong team in Russia as well. that understand the systems, that develop the systems, and that get us trained and get ready to go. And we learned some things on this flight that we'll take back to pass on to the future crews, but I think we're in good shape for what we have to tackle.
And Houston, I'm going to narrate this part. I'd like to start off by saying that the deploy was a real team effort. As you see the door coming open, just let you know that Jerry Ross was backing me up on all the procedures. And we had the CDR and Nancy and Sergei all working cameras, and Pluto helping out with some of the timing. There, as you can see, the door is fully open. So this is camera A, and we'll then switch over to D. There it goes. There's camera C. We saw a nice clean deploy with just a little bit of oscillations and nutation, and we'll zoom in here in a minute and you'll be able to see that more closely. Well, we're getting ready for landing now, so Rick and I need to be in shape, well fluid loaded and exercising. We got some room on the middeck to do that. Here's Nancy sending email. It's a real morale boost to be able to send letters back and forth to the folks on the ground. She thought I was taking a still picture, so she took her glasses off, and then she saw I had the camcorder going. So she said, well, heck, I might as well be able to read, so she put them back on. Yeah, Rick's working out here, too. He's getting his exercise in. The EVA guys have been using the ergometer not just for pedaling while he gets harassed by Sergei and Jim here, but it's also good for arm exercises. Here's Jerry all cleaned up after a hard day of work. All of us wish we could take our families along. That's not possible, but then again, it is possible. I got the Marine Corps PFT coming up, and I wanted to make sure I got my 20 pull-ups in, dead hangs. Jerry's trying to help me out here.
We're impressed, Bob.
Sergei's bouncing off the walls. We hope you enjoyed those last few sequences as much as we did.
Sergei used to be a Russian aerobatic champion. How proud and privileged all of us feel to have been part of the team that laid the cornerstone for the International Space Station. Permanent outpost in space, an international cooperative effort, is just the beginning of what we're going to do. And what we did in joining Unity and Zarya together is going to continue to grow because it's the right thing to do and it's going to benefit everyone. And I just can't tell you how proud we all are and what a sense of accomplishment we feel after such a successful mission thus far. Everybody on the ground, they should be extremely happy with the results of their efforts. We feel very, very proud to have been their eyes and their hands bringing all their hard work together on orbit. It's truly been an outstanding mission. We're just all elated. It's been a great flight thus far, and we look forward to seeing the space station grow and continue as we continue to explore in space. And with that, we'll turn it over to JSC for questions.
This is Paul Hoverston with USA Today with a question for Bob Cabana. Could you describe for me a little bit about the noise levels on Zarya, if it's enough to give any of you guys a headache? And also, if Sergei is going to have any difficulty sleeping when he gets up there on the liveaboard crew.
Well, Zarya being an electrical power and control module, not a living module, is a little different than some of the other places. The noise levels in Zarya were comparable to the mid-deck of the space shuttle on certain missions when we have experiments running down here. Zarya was a little bit noisier than Unity. Unity was extremely quiet, and I think that as long as crews have places they can go to find quiet and get away from the noise, it's not a problem. But the noise levels were not out of line with what we've seen on the space shuttle.
Then I just have a quick one for Jerry Ross. You and Jim have been pretty busy with all those spacewalks, and you seem to have a little bit of free time tomorrow, at least before landing. What do you plan to do with that?
Well, we still have a lot of packing to do and then get everybody suited up and into their seats, but if we have any time, I'm going to plan on spending it at the windows.
This is Mark Currie from the Houston Chronicle, and I'll just throw this open to whoever might like to answer this question. Your mission, I think, has made sort of a statement, and I just wonder what you think that statement is, the success of your flight, and what it says about the upcoming assembly flights. Is any sort of letdown warranted? Should people ratchet up their effort?
Mark, I think what it says is that if you put a lot of hard work and effort into something and everybody pulls together, you can accomplish the task. I think if things are planned properly and you leave a little margin for the unexpected, everything will work out. But it's not without a lot of pre-planning and a lot of group team effort, not just between the ground and the folks in space, but between the people on the ground, coordination between everyone that's involved. So I think we got our work cut out for us. It's showing that it takes a great deal of effort to pull off a mission successfully that's as complicated as this one. But I think we've also shown that it can be done if you prepare for it properly.
Endeavour, that's all the questions here at JSC. Please stand by for a voice check from KSCPAO.
Endeavour, this is KSCPAO. How do you hear me?
Loud and clear.
This is
We'll begin with our questions.
This is Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press for Jerry Ross. You mentioned briefly yesterday that your safer unit was not working exactly the way you wanted it. Could you explain a little bit about your test and how it went?
So, Marcia, it seemed to be consuming nitrogen, that's the propellant gas, faster than I expected it to. I'm not sure if it was. In fact, the readings I had outside at one point said I was down to 24% nitrogen. After we got back inside and did some readings on it, it was back up to 48%. So I think there's some problem in the software that tells me the quantity of the nitrogen. And since we were also pressed for time, and I thought I was getting close to running out of propellant, I decided to terminate the test and come on in.
Dan Billow from WESH-TV. I'll address this to the commander and invite anyone else who wants to chime in. People down here have been pretty knocked over by the visuals from this flight. It seemed to me, however, that you all were more knocked over by the visuals of, or by going inside of the new space station, which is a place that doesn't look very exciting and which you've seen many times before. Am I reading that correctly, that you may have been a little bit surprised by your reaction to going in there?
Well, it was an extremely emotional moment for all of us when we went inside, and I think once we got set up that evening and were accomplishing all the tasks that we had to for that first day inside, and we had a little bit of time to appreciate where we were kind of overcome with what had been accomplished. It was truly amazing. It was really great for all of us to see it all come together and all of it work. When you consider all the systems that were involved, and some of these systems, I mean the computer system, for example, we never tested it directly between Unity and Zarya. was all done with some flight hardware and some simulators simulating the other hardware on the ground. And the first time these two pieces ever saw each other working together was in space, and it all worked. I think that's outstanding. It's a tribute to all the hard work by the folks on the ground. And it was just a great moment of pride for us to see everybody's hard work come together with no anomalies. That and the visual views, as good as all the camera views are and as how special they are, I think what you see with the human eye is just so much more vivid and with more detail, and it was truly awesome. I'll pass it on to anybody else that wants to add.
This is Phillips Earth News for Jerry. Congrats on getting your EVA record back, as you promised me some time ago, and even passing Sergei in duration. Any thoughts about catching up with Anatoly Sololyev and his 16 EVAs and getting the world record?
That's a pretty high mark. I don't think that's something that you can even consider, but I just would like to continue to fly and work with the team and preparing for future flights and helping to get this station fully assembled and operational.
This is Bill Harwood, CBS. A question for Jim Newman, if I can. Jim, the commander was saying a minute ago that the success of this mission really owes itself to all the training you guys did, and obviously you had more training than the average crew. The question is, as that EVA wall approaches next year, how sustainable is that level of training going to be to make all of this work over this next 5-year period?
Well, one of the things I think we'll be able to do, Bill, is to use the experience that we have in the office in order to go more towards a skills-based training approach rather than a task-based. We did have the luxury of doing some extra runs because of the delays in the launch, but Jerry and I both agreed that those weren't really required. We could have certainly done the task earlier with fewer of those proficiency runs. So I think that also as you see the level of experience in the office grow, like you could turn, it's not going to happen, but you could turn Jerry and I on a quick turn for another flight and cut the amount of training way down. And I think that you'll see as the experience base in the office grows and more people have that under their belts, that you'll see the requirement for training go down some, in able to keep it sustainable, because we have to do that.
Pete Galtieri with the West Kentucky News for Jerry. You seemed rather, in an earlier interview, you seemed a little remorseful that you lost a few things on the spacewalk. What might be the significance of that? And about those satellites, do you get to name any of them?
Well, I would choose not to name any of them. It was very regrettable circumstances that I lost those pieces of hardware. I'm not sure how it happened. I tried to be as meticulous as possible in terms of tethering to them and making sure that each step along the way we kept track of everything. I don't know if it was a materials problem, a hardware design problem, or an oversight on my part, but the final result was that we did lose some hardware.
I'd like to add to that. I think we're going to have unexpected things happen, but it certainly shouldn't detract from the excellent job that Jim and Jerry did while they were out there. They accomplished everything that we set out to do and more, and did it in an outstanding fashion. Those were 3 superb EVAs.
Mike Cabbage with the Orlando Sentinel. My question's for Nancy Currie. I know you said before the mission that you were a little worried about how it was going to be, and that you felt that in some respects the weight of the program was on your shoulders. As you look back now on the mission in retrospect, was it a lot easier than you thought it would be?
I'm just very fortunate that I had probably the world's best training team to prepare me for the mission, and I think if it did seem easy, which it actually seemed as hard as I thought it was going to be, we just took it nice and slow, probably painfully slow if you ask Bob, but took it nice and slow, and all the training paid off. It was exactly the way we had trained, and I think that made it just a whole lot easier.
This is Marcia Dunn of the AP again for any or a couple. There are only 10 shopping days left, and I'm wondering if as soon as you get back you have to like rush like mad to the mall, or is this something you thought out through before?
I guess since I had the mic, I'll speak first. I know my husband's already bought the Christmas tree. I think they're going to wait to decorate it till I get home. And I do have some shopping to do when I get home, considering we went into quarantine on Thanksgiving Day. I wasn't looking that far ahead.
Yeah, Marcia, I'm not much of a shopper, to tell you the truth.
I think the best Christmas present I could have is having my whole family together, all the kids home from college and the military, and having everybody back together for Christmas, and that'll be a great present as far as I'm concerned.
Actually, Marcia, I had already done my Christmas shopping. My wife and I went out and got a new computer several months before we flew.
Thanks. No, go ahead.
And I actually spent some of the time in quarantine under the bright lights that we use to shift our biorhythms. I spent some of that time wrapping presents, but still certainly have some more shopping to do.
Bill Harwood again with CBS. I just wanted to follow up on a question Dan Billow asked earlier. I think some of us down here watching this were struck by the fact that after covering this program for 15 years, to see the two modules get together, there was almost a sense of unreality about it. It was like, this can't be real, can it? And I'm just wondering if you guys felt that way when you saw the two modules finally put together. Did you look out the window or look at each other and go, can you believe this? I mean, was there any reaction like that?
Every minute, every time we looked out those overhead windows and saw that huge stack sitting there in the payload bay, those are our exact thoughts, Bill. It was just, we kept pinching ourselves and saying, it can't be real. It's going so well, and everything is so right, and it just looks so good. Yeah, there was a little sense of unreality about it.
Phil Chen again for Jerry. As you were deploying the Toru antenna, I couldn't help but remember the Gamma Ray Observatory and its manual antenna deploy. And I'm wondering if this is becoming a habit with you, or are you really bribing somebody on the ground to ensure that you have some extra fun activity to do while you're on EVAs?
Definitely not that. I'm glad that we were able to help fix problems when they come up. This one took more of an effort, actually, than what the gamma ray antenna did. The gamma ray was a fairly easy one to free. This one was a little more stubborn.
Dan Billow again. Similar question to my last one about the visuals for Bob. I think the fact that this is probably the most visually impressive space shuttle mission that probably has ever happened is due to, in large part, your efforts to make sure there's a lot of KU downlink all the time. Tell me, how important is that to you to make sure that everyone on the ground is looking at what you're looking at, and how important is the inspiration value of those images?
Well, I think it's only fair to the folks on the ground that have worked so hard to make this happen that they get to see the fruits of their efforts. And so it took a little bit more effort on our part to ensure that we had the scenes captured, and we're able to put together a downlink every day to send that message down. It was certainly very rewarding for us to see it firsthand, and I wouldn't want those folks to have to wait until we got home to see our videotapes in order to see what they'd been able to build and put together. So I think it was extremely important, and it was well worth any extra effort that we had to do.
Pete Galtieri with the West Kentucky News for Pluto. There have been already a few unscheduled maintenance on Zarya, and you guys did the work outside. How easy was it to do some of the unscheduled stuff on Zarya?
If you're referring to the EVA stuff outside, then that would be the antennas and the sample box that Jerry and I worked on up top. And that was actually pretty easy, and we know the ground spent a lot of time working that, and we appreciate all their efforts in Houston and also in Moscow. As far as the inside stuff, let me pass that off to Sergei and Nancy.
Jim already talked about skills-based training, and in the Russian program we use it a lot, so some kind of unscheduled job and maintenance is not a big problem for us.
I guess the only thing I'd add is we had the opportunity to go look at the vehicle several times over in Moscow, and that really paid off. We had asked all the questions that we needed to in terms of unscheduled maintenance, and certainly having Sergei on the crew was just a wonderful asset. It really paid off.
And also we had opportunity to talk with developers and designers in Moscow, so this direct radio link also helped a lot. And all people on ground who support us.
This is Phil Chen again for Sergei. Now that you've seen your new home where you're going to be living in about a year or so, what do you think of it, and what improvements do you think it needs besides more modules to make it home for you?
We probably do some improvements when we will come there, when we will start to settle our regular rhythm to work on station, and we will see how it goes. Only my serious worry to see that station wouldn't be too much cluttered with additional load.
Marcia Dunn, AP, for Jerry Ross again, just to revisit the SAFER. Do you think it's a little late in the game to be still having problems with something that you really need since the station era is now underway, and what's it going to take to get that working the way it should?
Well, Marcia, I think the actual answer to that's going to have to wait till we get back on the ground and the engineers get a chance to look at the hardware and I get a chance to talk to them and explain more fully what I saw and experienced. It is a little bit frustrating that we don't have a fully functional SAFER at this point. It is our life-saving capability for a person should they become disconnected from the station, and we'll need to pursue this fairly vigorously.
Bill Horowitz, CBS again. Another one for Dr. Newman, I think, over there in the corner. Jim, you guys were strictly business out there on those EVAs, and those of us on the ground who can only imagine doing something like that always wonder what it's like or what the view is like. And I know you're a physicist and you're not a poet, per se, but when you're up on top of the Zarya looking down at the stack and the Earth in the background, can you put any of that into words for us about what that experience is like?
On STS-51, when I got my first spacewalk, the only word that I had when I came back inside was unbelievable, and I think that that's true now, only more so. When Jerry and I were up on top of that, looking at the Earth, especially as the sun came up, and it was truly an unbelievable experience. We did take some closeout photos up there, which we hope will include some of what we saw, and can only try to describe it with those pictures and give you the best feeling I can. But truly unbelievable.
It's Dan Billow for Jerry Ross. Another SAFER question. Does it seem to you that maybe it's true that SAFER is that the need for SAFER is even greater than perhaps you thought in light of the losses of those tools, mysterious as they are? I mean, should we be concerned that that could happen to an astronaut, perhaps more than we might have been before this flight?
That is precisely the reason I pushed so hard for the SAFERs in the very first place, Dan. I felt that with the orbiter being attached to the station and the construction was going on, they were in a very vulnerable condition with a crew member coming disconnected for whatever reason, just like the hardware did. And it would be a terrible scene for somebody to be drifting over the horizon with no way to get back to them and with the orbiter unavailable or at least delayed in an attempt to come and rescue them. So I think it's a very important piece of hardware. That's why I pushed hard for the flight test. After all the engineering analysis is done and maybe some rework is done on the hardware, we maybe have to go back and test it again.
Pete Galtieri with the West Kentucky News for the Commander. Is it correct that you're not going to be using the parachute on the landing, and how do you expect that to go?
That's affirmative. We will not have a drag chute, and it's not required. With our improved brakes and landing at KSC, the orbiter will stop extremely well. We've flown many flights previous to having the drag chute without it with less capable brakes, so I don't foresee any problems at all. It'll be a nominal landing.
Endeavour, this is Houston ACR. Please stand by for a voice check from CSA.
Endeavour, this is CSA. How do you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I'm Claude Lafleur for Quebec Science Magazine. My question is for Sergei Krikalev. I would like to know, since he had lived more than a year on board Mir and he will live on board the International Space Station, I would like to have his feeling what will be different between living on the new station.
There are some differences and some similarities. It's difficult to make some clear understanding how it will go. We need to start to fly and see how it goes. Right now I know that one of the differences will be that more people involved in flight and flight support, and two mission control will be involved in planning all our activity. So it helps sometimes, but it makes sometimes more difficult to coordinate all these activities.
My name is Réal Damour for Radio Canada. The question is for the crew. You have spent hundreds of hours in the simulator. I would like to know the percentage of improvisation, or at least the need to adapt the situation when it was not going like in the simulator.
I think that's always required, and I'd say probably in the ballpark of 10% of what we do is not actually simulated on the ground precisely. We try and take a look on the ground in our simulations of all the things that can go possibly go wrong and be prepared for it, but there's always the unexpected. So I'd say it's important, but again, skills-based training will help take care of the problems when they arise.
Hello, I'm Tom Spears from the Ottawa Citizen newspaper. I'd just like to know, after you've dealt with a stuck antenna and the tools that came untethered, does this teach you anything about the reality of assembling this station that you didn't already get in training and practice on the ground?
I don't believe so, Tom. I think that the kind of training we do prepares us for a wide variety of different types of tasks and gives us the proper type of training. I think what you saw is this is the first time that we've done assembly on a large structure like this, and we're using a lot of tools that have been applied for the first time under actual work conditions, under all the lighting conditions and everything else that we're doing. And I think this is what we have to be prepared for. Hopefully we'll learn from this and help to minimize the problems in the future.
My name is Joe Singerman with CTV in Montreal. My question concerns the performance of the Canadian Space Vision System, as well as possible suggestions, your suggestions up there, on improvements, how the system can be improved with this working experience under construction.
STS, I think, performed well for a system that's still in development under difficult conditions. The full debrief is going to have to wait, I think, until I have a chance to talk to the team and see their analysis of the data. But I think it does have some challenges ahead, but it also has some capabilities. The challenges are using the orbiter cameras. We've constrained them to use the orbiter cameras, and those are difficult to focus and zoom precisely. The other challenges are the lighting. The lighting conditions on the space station, assembly tasks and on the space station are also going to be challenges. So I think that the technology is there and the capability is there, but I'd have to say that it's not really fully operational yet. It's a system in development, and we're looking for good things in the future, but it will need some work.
Oliver Roberts, La Presse newspaper in Montreal, and the Space News. To Nancy Currie. Nancy, I would like to know, how did you like working with the upgraded Canadarm? And if you, when you will be back on the ground, if you will have any tip for Julie Payette on her upcoming mission? She will perform practically the same thing as you did.
I guess the only thing I'm going to pass along is that the real arm flies even better, if you can believe it, than the simulators. It was as stable as it could possibly be, especially with a large mass like Zarya, over 44,000 pounds. It just flew perfectly. When we unberthed Unity from the payload bay, we didn't have much clearance at all. We had a little bit over an inch on either side of the payload bay. It was very, very tight. we attempted to bring it straight out of the bay, and it flew straight out of the bay. And even some of our simulators drift a little bit more than that. So I can't speak more highly about the performance of the Canadian arm than I've seen on this flight. And I think I said the same thing on my on my first flight when I came back and said the simulators modeled the arm perfectly. I guess the only thing I'd add is the real arm's better than the simulators this time, and maybe because of the upgrade.
Michel Marcellet from Le Journal de Montréal. Considering all the delay and controversy around the space station, I wonder how did you cope with the extra pressure of this mission? Did you talk about it a lot between yourself or yoga? I don't know.
We didn't feel any undue pressure at all to go early or do something we shouldn't have done. We waited. We launched when the time was right, when the hardware was ready, and we are extremely safety conscious at NASA and within the International Space Station program, and when things are right, we'll do them, and not until. So it was the right time for us to launch, and as a result of that, the plan came together and everything worked. I think we felt an awful lot of pressure to succeed, and we knew that things were as good as they were going to get, that everybody was ready, but I think there's always, in the back of your mind, can we pull this off, can we make it work? And there was a great sense of relief amongst the crew at the various stages of the mission as we pulled off each successive stage. So I think everything worked as planned, and it was due to all the hard work of everybody involved and doing things at the right time.
Joe Singerman again with CTV. My question concerns the historical significance of the space station construction missions. You've been busy over the last few days working diligently. Have you had any time now, a little bit of downtime to relax and just take in the whole historical significance that man is now entering a new era of exploration and discovery?
Well, I think so. I think that we've all come to realize that we've laid the cornerstone for a permanent international outpost in space, that space exploration is our destiny, that we're going to go beyond the confines of low Earth orbit, and that when we do it, we're going to do it amongst ourselves united, with everybody working together for the benefit of all. So I think we're extremely proud to be a part of that effort. It's been a unique opportunity, and there but for the grace of God go anybody else in our office. We have an extremely talented astronaut corps in Houston and in Russia, and any one of us could have been here doing this. So we're going to continue to prepare and be prepared to explore more in the future and add to space station.
Oliver to Jerry Ross. Jerry, I would like you to comment on the evolution of the work that you performed on your first EVA on the Ease Access mission, and compared to what you performed in your 3 EVAs on this mission.
The experiments we did on the Ease Access experiments on STS-88 back in 1985 were a very early attempt to try to understand what different types of techniques might be usable for assembling hardware in space. The first EVA in particular was a very, very hand-intensive spacewalk. I was very fatigued at the end of that one. The second one was somewhat less energetic, but still also I came in very tired after that one. These EVAs that Jim and I conducted were longer than either of those, but they were at a more moderate pace. Also, I had better gloves this time, which meant that they didn't get as tired as easily. So I came in feeling fine physically, no problems at all from any one of the 3 EVAs, and was ready to go out the next time.
Réal Damour, Radio-Canada, a question again. Would you like to stay another day up, even if you have worked drastically hard? Would you like to stay another day up in the space?
That's think that's resounding, of course, from the whole crew. We'd be willing to stay here as long as we had the capability and work to do. Unfortunately, we've accomplished all that we set out for, and the capabilities of the orbiter are such that we have to come home in the next few days. So I think we're ready to stay, and on future missions, folks will feel the same way. It just feels really good, though, to have accomplished everything that you set out to do, and so as a result of that, we're also ready to come home.
Endeavour, this is Houston ACR. Please stand by for a follow-up question at JSC.
Thank you, Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle, for Sergei Krikalev. What will you tell Bill Shepard and your other crewmate about the new space station in terms of helping to prepare them to live there and work there?
The first element, first two pieces already assembled, and we need to work a little more to wait when third piece of the station will be docked to station, and then it will be time to go and work on the station, continue to build it, continue to upgrade.
Endeavour, thank you for taking time to answer all the questions. This is JSCPO, and this concludes the event.
Thanks, JSC, and thanks to you, Endeavour. You guys done a great job and got us going on a great adventure here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scotty. It was our privilege. We really enjoyed it.
And we're out of the cabin into the payload bay.
Roger, Houston, we've closed the contingency power circuit breaker, and the pre-arm and arm talkbacks are bubble-poled, and the deployed talkback is gray.
Okay. Endeavour, Houston, we copy, and that sounds great. Thank you.
This television view now live from a camera in Endeavour's payload bay, looking forward, upcoming in about 5.5 minutes. The release of the MightySat satellite. MightySat located in a canister in the payload bay. That canister visible in this view on the left-hand side of the screen at about the midway point just below the mechanical arm where the camera is located at the elbow joint of the mechanical arm. Attached to the side of Endeavour's payload bay below that point is a canister that holding the MightySat satellite. Again, the satellite planned to be ejected from that canister at a rate of a little over a mile per hour, coming up in about 5 minutes. MightySat's an Air Force science satellite that studies composite materials used for construction of satellites, as well as advanced electronics, including a new type of solar cell that would use the sun's heat rather than its light to generate electricity.
Endeavour, Houston, we have all our commands on board. You have a go for steps 5 and 6 on time.
Endeavour, Roger, go for step 5 and 6 on time.
That call to pilot Rick Sturckow about the preparations for release of MightySat. Endeavour is currently above Southeast Asia. Its course taking it south across the islands of Indonesia. 2 minutes now to release of MightySat. Actually, the opening of a window for release that lasts more than 25 minutes. However, the plan to release it right at the start of that window. MightySat located in this view on the left-hand side of the payload bay, about midway up the mechanical arm as it's latched into its cradle along the shuttle's bay, located on the side of the bay just below that point. On the midway point of the arm is a camera that can be seen very clearly in this view. The canister right below that is the one that holds MightySat. Be ejected out of the canister at a rate of a little over a mile per hour. Endeavour 245 miles above the islands of Indonesia. One minute from deploy now. MightySat is the second satellite released by Endeavour in as many days. The first satellite, an Argentine scientific satellite, already being tracked by Argentine spaceflight controllers, operating well, deemed very healthy, beginning its experiment operations. This satellite, an Air Force science satellite that will study composite materials for spacecraft construction and new technologies, including a solar cell that uses the sun's heat rather than its light to generate electricity. Now about 20 seconds from the opening of the release window for MightySat. Guidance Navigation and Control Officer reports he sees the shuttle's jets turned off, that preparatory to the release. And now MightySat released from Endeavour. As Endeavour flies 245 miles above the islands of Indonesia.
Houston Endeavour, we have a successful deploy of MightySat on time. Our congratulations to the MightySat team at Kirtland Air Force Base, the Phillips Lab, and Goddard Space Flight Center, and the United States Air Force.
Endeavour Houston, we copy. Thank you very much. We saw a really neat deploy down here.
And Houston, if you come up on camera A, we're still tracking.
Thank you very much.
This view showing MightySat.
Endeavour, we have a nice view of MightySat.
Roger, Houston, step 7 is complete. We're out of the procedure.
We copy and concur. Thank you very much.
Again, MightySat's an Air Force science satellite that studies the use of composite materials for spacecraft construction. Also a new type of solar cell that uses the sun's heat rather than its light to generate electricity. Also has studies of materials processing equipment for satellites on board, handling device specifically that could process semiconductor materials in orbit. MightySat, an Air Force satellite designed by Phillips Laboratories.
Endeavour, if you can come up camera C, we have an object floating out, appear to come out of the MightySat container.
Okay, thanks. Endeavour, we have that on the camera. Do you have an estimate of how big that is?
about the size of a D battery.
Great, thanks. Endeavour Houston, we got a good look at that object you pointed out to us. Would you happen to have an estimate of the velocity vector versus the shuttle bay?
Pretty much straight out the shuttle bay, and it's moving very slowly, Houston.
Okay, copy. Straight up the shuttle bay and slow relative motion. Thank you.
And it's probably 50 feet out of the bay right now, just barely separating.
Okay, thanks. That's good information.
This television now showing the MightySat as it separates the vicinity of Endeavour. Again, the crew also reporting that a small piece of debris came out of the canister shortly after MightySat had been ejected. That small piece, about the size of a D battery, is reported by pilot Rick Sturckow. Separating from Endeavour as well, about 50 feet above the payload bay now, separating very slowly. Again, the Air Force Science Satellite, MightySat, released on time from Endeavour at 8:09 p.m. Central Time this evening. That going smoothly. MightySat ejected from Endeavour at a rate of about a little over 1 mile per hour. Now separating the vicinity of the shuttle as Endeavour flies above southern Australia.
Houston, Endeavour on the object.
Go ahead, we're listening.
Yeah, it's a silver aluminum cylinder of some sort, or metal cylinder that looks like it's closed at one end, open at the other end, and it has two round holes 180 degrees apart, and they're close to the open end.
Endeavour, we copy, thank you, and I have some words for message 127 Bravo on the pilot RHC troubleshooting if you guys are ready to work on that.
Yeah, we're going to go to work on it. We want to check the fuse first and make sure it's working. Before we do that, we got to go to maneuver to attitude.
There you have a go for attitude maneuver, and you read my mind. I was going to recommend the same thing. Check that fuse before you do anything else.
And we obviously have miscommunication between the RHC and the computer. It's getting the delay before when you go to the detents and hit the space bar, it's not responding immediately upon hitting the space bar.
Okay, yeah, the fuse is probably the right place to start. Let us know what you find out.
You bet.
And if you have any questions on any of this, we got Keith Grimm here, an expert on the system, to answer our questions.
Okay, it looked good, and we'll get on it right away.
Thank you.
And Houston, Endeavour, the fuse is good.
Okay, copy. The fuse check's good, and I guess we can just step through the procedure. I guess you've already checked check for the 3 to 4 second delay, so I guess you're down to check the COM port.
That's affirmative. We'll hook it up and take a look.
Okay, we're standing by, thanks. Endeavour Houston, on the little part you saw float out after the deploy, it looks to us like it was the debris shield from the bolt cutter. Your description, and from what we see, that's exactly what it looks like, is the debris shield from the bolt cutter.
Endeavour, roger.
That call about the debris that floated out after. Again, that thought to be the piece of debris that was ejected shortly after MightySat was released, thought to be part of the mechanism that ejected the satellite, a shield, a debris shield for the bolt cutter mechanism that cuts the latches attaching the satellite to Endeavour prior to its ejection. MightySat continuing to separate from Endeavour. All activities for the crew going well. They'll turn their attention now to stowing away gear in the cabin, packing up their bags for the trip home tomorrow, aiming toward a landing in Florida at 9:54 p.m. Central Time Tuesday.
Houston, we have a comlink. Go ahead.
Roger, this call is for OSO on the rack pivot pin procedure.
Go ahead.
Mike, we were working step 8 on page 6-5, where it says loosen mid-bay pivot fitting bolt. And we had already referred to the non-captive locking wedge at the top of page 6-6. And after about a quarter turn, instead of pulling out as it describes in the note, the locking wedge went straight in and is now drops behind the rack. And we have a suggestion when you're ready to listen.
Okay, we're ready.
Well, we believe after looking at this, in order to gain access to the wedge, the best thing would be to do the rack rotation procedure and carefully rotate the rack out and then slip storm behind to grab the wedge, and we should be in good shape.
CJ, that sounds good. Give us a few minutes to talk it through, and we'll get back to you.
Okay, and actually we just picked up a tally hole on it, and we think we can hook it.